Well, joining me now is Andrew Pendleton from Friends of the Earth. We're also joined tonight by Andrew Austin, who is the Chief Executive of iGas, which has a licence to drill for shale gas in this country. Gentlemen, very good evening to you. Andrew Austin, let's start with you. I mean, if fracking is so good for the UK, why is there so much opposition to it?
Well, it's about public education. We need to make sure people understand what's going on.
And they don't, do they? I mean, David Cameron says himself, no one knows the facts. You're in charge of the facts. Why don't we know about this?
Well, we do know the facts. We've got a lot of experience of fracking across this country in the past. More than 200 wells have been fracked across the UK over the last 30 years. And there's a lot of experience in the US and other parts of the world about fracking.
The message isn't getting through, is it?
No, absolutely. And it's up to us.
And that's your job, isn't it? So why aren't you doing that?
We are doing that. We're engaging with the communities in which we operate. It really requires a social licence to operate, as in your introduction, you said that we have a licence to extract oil and gas through any technique, including fracking. That's a piece of paper one gets from the Department of Energy and Climate Change. In addition to that, we need the social licence to operate from the communities in which we act.
And so you personally be down to these communities to explain the facts to them, have you?
Absolutely.
Where have you been?
I regularly go to our sites in Lincolnshire, in the northwest, and also in the south of England, where I also live. OK, Andrew Pendleton, let's bring you in here. I mean, David Cameron assures us fracking will drive down energy bills, also create jobs in this country. Why would you stand in the way of that?
Well, it's unproven, and actually the evidence on bringing down energy bills is that it won't do that. The price of gas will continue to rise, and that's the government's own figures. So, in fact, the Prime Minister really should check his own government's facts. Well, the Department of Energy and Climate Change, in fact, says that it's highly unlikely. 2 of its 3 scenarios on fracking has the price of gas still going up.
Even though in America, the prices have come down considerably.
Yes, and certainly in the US there are conditions, for instance, very much more sparsely populated, easier geology. In the UK, as Andrew says actually from iGas, it is going to be more difficult to persuade people on the local issues. But from Friends of the Earth's point of view, the biggest issue here is climate change. Even if we can get this stuff out the ground, we shouldn't be burning very much of it, because we have climate change targets. Well, we have climate change targets in the UK. Gas is a dirty fuel. It produces the gases that we know now are leading to profound changes already in our climate. We cannot burn this stuff even if we get it out of the ground.
Andrew, also, will you be contributing to climate change if you carry on?
Basically, we need gas as part of our mix. And Andrew is right to say that there are dirty fuels that we burn, fossil fuels that we burn, and our enemy here is actually coal.
But is shale gas one of them? And will you be polluting the country even more by doing this?
No, because locally burnt gas is 10 to 20% less carbon footprint than imported gas from other parts of the world.
He says you're
wrong.
And
I would rather produce, if we are going to have to use gas as a substitute, as a transition fuel, as part of our move towards renewable targets and our carbon targets for the country, I would rather we use locally produced gas in a highly regulated environment than import gas from other parts of the world.
In 20 years' time, we can burn virtually no fossil fuels in this country to generate electricity if we're to stay in our climate change targets. So maybe over the next 10 years or so, but there is not going to be any shale gas in the next 10 years at least. So we've got very little opportunity. In the meantime, what we'll do is scare communities and risk spoiling the landscape and contamination.
So this is NIMBY, isn't it? You just don't want this in your backyard. That's what it's really about, isn't it?
No, Friends of the Earth's point is primarily about climate change, but we work very closely with local communities, for instance, that in Balcombe in West Sussex, where residents are resolutely against this.
And Andrew Austin, would you be happy to live next to a fracking site yourself?
Absolutely, yeah.
You wouldn't have a problem with it?
No, I wouldn't have a problem with it at all. Yeah, and I talk to people regularly who are neighbours at a number of our sites across the country. We operate more than 100 sites exploiting hydrocarbons across the country right now, every day. So we have a lot of neighbours, and we are used to dealing with those communities and allaying their fears. And I'm really reassured by what Andrew's just said, actually, that you know, if you're going to have an interim fuel for the next 20 years, then actually shale gas locally produced would be a better place to be from a climate change perspective.
Final comment from you, please.
There's enough gas in the world. We've got very secure supplies from countries like Norway, which we get on very well with. We don't need to spoil the English countryside to get more of it.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me tonight.